Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Lit Lounge by Mocha here at the beautiful MLK Library. This month's selection is for anyone who's ever felt a little different, not quite like everyone else, not quite mainstream. Last month in May, we observed APA Heritage Month. This month, June, is Pride Month, Black Music Month, and this selection speaks to exactly not only that population, but for anyone who's ever felt just a little different than everyone else. It's okay to be that person. It's okay to own it. It's okay to walk in it, because you know what? That's exactly what you're supposed to do. And if anyone's life reflects that, it's Miss Sophia Chang in The Baddest Bitch in the Room. Hey, Sophia. I'm sure people say that to you all the time. What a beautiful name.
Yes.
Look, this book, well, first of all, welcome to the Lit Lounge. I'm so wanting to.
Mocha, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I so wish I was there in person with you at the gorgeous DC Public Library.
Yes, it's amazing, brand new. So, we still got to have you come in person.
Please.
It's opening back up. Can you imagine? Like it's
God bless. There was a time when we couldn't even imagine that.
right.
Not long ago.
Right. But for being in closed doors, it got a lot of us to read good books from great authors. Congratulations on this book. And thank you for this book.
Oh, thank you.
But we'll get into that.
Okay.
Into that first. So one thing I didn't tell you that we have in common, I grew up in Edmonton.
No way. Cold Edmonton?
Edmonton, Alberta. That's where I grew up. So much of your story resonates with me. So let's start. Where are you from?
So I was born and raised in Vancouver, British Columbia, just one province west of you, a child of Korean immigrants.
Yes. And your before we get into really your story, your mom, we know where you get it from. Tell us some about your mom.
So my mother was born in Kyong. At the time, it wasn't called North Korea, but North Korea in 1932. She just turned 89 a few weeks ago. And after, when all of the nonsense started happening, she was one of 10 children. Her parents started sending the eldest down to the South. 3 of her siblings had preceded her. And then her eldest brother had preceded her, and then her and her older sister crossed the border, and she never saw her parents or her siblings again after 14.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a harrowing journey. They took a boat in the dead of night, and she thought that she was going to die. The boat took on so much water. And to this day, and I only realized this, Mocha, in writing the memoir, my mother cannot stand being on boats, and she is morbidly afraid of turbulence. And I'm sure it comes from this original trauma.
Absolutely. So your parents meet. You're gonna have to just read the book. I'm not gonna tell you all everything, but we're gonna hit the highlights. Your parents, move, your parents meet, come to Vancouver, and
that's right.
There is little Sophia in Canada, in Vancouver. And I'm not sure that everyone can grasp, but what it feels like to be other, right? Yes. I mean, in Canada, you're Korean, Canadian. When did you realize that you were other? When did you first realize?
That's a really good question. I think that I probably realized it as soon as I went to preschool, as soon as I was around other children. There's a lack of malice there by and large, but especially, I was born in 65. So at 4, when I'm in preschool, it's 69. So kids are doing this to me, kids are calling me chink and Jap and gook as I got a little bit older. So being other happened almost as soon as I was around white people, basically non-Koreans.
Right. I don't think a lot of people, Canada's a nice, friendly place. It's the racism there, let's just say it's more subtle, but you can still feel it.
Subterfuge, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you go through, it's interesting to watch your journey as you become more and more Sophia, who's obviously different for other reasons as well. Where did you get that sense of being so headstrong from?
I think that a lot of it, Mocha, is just constitutional, right? So when I was writing my memoir, my editors asked me, were you always this confident? And I thought, let me ask my mother, the person who would know the
Okay,
best.
right.
I called and I said, Mom, you know what? Was I always this confident? And she just laughed. She said, you were always self-assured. You always knew exactly who you were and exactly what you wanted. So I was confident from when I was very, very young. And a big source of my confidence being othered, right, Mocha, knowing that I was always going to be outside, I compensated for that young, really young, like as early as
Wow.
kindergarten, by wanting to be the smartest, right? The
Hmm.
smartest girl in the room, the most popular, the best dressed. These are the ways that I kind of made up for the perceived deficit, the social deficit.
Hmm.
So I knew that, my father, God rest his soul, a genius mathematician, my mother, a librarian, both incredibly erudite, well-read. My brother, he sought the 10 smartest people in the world. I knew I was smart. And this was my weapon. And again, as well as I was just very popular and funny and teacher's pet and really well dressed. So it some of it is intrinsic, right? And then some of it is absolutely cultivated. I talk all the time about we all, but particularly women of color, we have to work to cultivate our confidence.
Right, right. And you embraced your being different. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Bazoma St. John. She
Mm-hmm.
said she was in Minnesota, this tall Black girl. And if I'm going to be tall and this Black girl in the middle of Minnesota, I might as well just be different and
And
own
not
it.
try to hide, right?
Exactly, exactly. So you got into punk,
I
as a
did.
lot of us did, the punk rock era,
Mm-hmm.
in Canada. And people don't realize how culturally diverse Canada is. And then you talked about Much Music and all that. We had all that. We were
Yes.
exposed. Yeah. So how did music begin to shape the Sophia we know now?
So my father listened to lots of different kinds of music. He was particularly fond of classical music. He really loved symphonies and Beethoven and Bach, but he really loved opera. And opera, I didn't know the lyrics and I didn't read them or study them. And a lot of them are in different languages. My father could actually sing along to opera in whether it was German or French or Italian, but it's a form of storytelling, right?
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that we probably watched some operas on television. And then he would also listen to Nat King Cole or Rosemary Clooney. And then my brother, being 3 years older than me, he was really my musical Sherpa. So I grew up in Vancouver, and much like you growing up in Edmonton, Mocha, I didn't hear Black music at all. Probably the
Hmm.
earliest Black music I heard, well, there's Nat King Cole, right? But in terms of
Hmm.
popular music, was disco in the 70s. And I started listening to punk, and what I responded to with punk, as it probably was the case for you, was this sense of anti-establishmentarianism, right?
Absolutely.
This kind of up you to the man. And I remember there was a shirt, the t-shirt that lots of punks wore that said question authority. Do you remember that shirt?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
ripping your jeans and the kind of the bondage, it was so subculture, was so counterculture, and that really appealed to me. And I think it definitely tapped into my sense of just of defiance
Yeah.
and kind of wanting to be a little bit revolutionary and going against the grain. And then, as I talk about in my memoir, in the 12th grade, I heard The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and it completely, as the French would say, j'étais bouleversée. I was completely turned upside down. And
Accent. Your accent is perfect. And you
thank you.
talk about it in the book too. It's perfect.
Thank you. And then I moved to New York and ensconced myself in hip hop. But for sure, all of the music that I listened to, really starting in the mid to late 80s, right? With the Jam and the Clash and U2, these, you know, and the Buzzcocks, these kind of formative years, and hearing that kind of raw anger, right? It wasn't polished at all. It was quite the opposite. That kind of got me, you know, it was kind of the gateway to hip hop.
Right,
And
right, right.
hip hop really helped me um honor and express my anger. And you know, it's been a tremendous gift to me, and I will always acknowledge that I was definitely I was deeply influenced by hip hop.
And you are a gift to hip hop because, as we'll talk about, I mean, with what you did with Wu-Tang, I mean, you're a gift to hip hop. So we will get there. So your move to New York. Let's talk about that. You
Moved to
tell
New
your
York
parents,
City.
I'm gonna go for 6 months.
Yes, I moved to New York City. So in my senior year of university, I came to visit my brother's friend. While I was here, I met Joey Ramone. I stayed in touch with him. I ended up staying with Joey Ramone, God rest his soul, Joey Ramone's friend, Legs McNeil, a tremendous music journalist, and his girlfriend at the time, Carol Overby. Carol worked for Paul Simon. Carol got me a job as an assistant to Paul Simon's tour managers, coming right off of the Graceland tour. And you know, Paul's career, that he was at the apex of his career. So I was exposed to the creme de la creme, right? And so here I meet the mighty Mo Austin, the chairman of Warner Brothers, who founded it. It started as Reprise Records with Frank Sinatra, and Lenny Waronker and Michael Austin, who is the head of A&R, who to this day is one of my closest friends and my mentors. And then in, you know, in 87, the hip hop scene was this big. It wasn't this huge, sprawling, global, billion-trillion-dollar industry. And so for a Korean Canadian woman who was a fan, I was able to just go to the clubs. And we were all, the amazing thing, Mocha, about the clubs at the time, there was no bottle service, there was no VIP sections, and we were all there. So all the pillars, right? DJs, MC, graph artists, breakers, break dancers. But then you had the managers, the attorneys, the A&R people, the publicists, the booking agents. Everybody was there, and there's this really wonderful, tightly knit community. And the fabric that held us all together was our incredible love of and passion for hip hop.
Right, right. So as hip hop began to take shape as a business, so you were there in the midst of all of that. So what was it like to be a woman now, young woman, in that phase of it? Because we don't, I mean, we hear Roxanne Shante, all of the MCs that were in the front, but we don't really hear too much about the people in the back making it happen. Tell us about your beginnings there.
Yeah, I mean, you know this, I wasn't only a woman, I was an Asian woman. I was the first Asian woman in hip hop, right? So I say that I was a minority within a minority within a minority within a minority, meaning Black music, hip hop, woman, Asian.
Right.
And I was, having grown up being called so many racist names, Mocha, I was more acutely aware of racism because it was so in my face. I didn't necessarily have the sophisticated mechanism to recognize sexism when it appeared, you know, how it
Right.
showed up. Of course, at 56, I can see it much more clearly now, but I couldn't at the time.
You do not look 56, but okay.
Thank you.
If you say so, okay.
Thank you. Being a woman, look, I walked a tightrope, and it was not a fair balancing act, right? So the men, as you can imagine, they were out there doing whatever they wanted, sleeping with whomever they wanted, bragging about it, getting pats on the back. And for us as the women, we knew that if we got, you know, if we started sleeping around, started sleeping with artists, and who cares, right?
Right,
That we would get
right,
branded with the Scarlet H, we'd be called hoes, right?
right.
And so I was very careful in that. And just by constitution, and not for any moral reason at all, I'm not a drinker. I've never been drunk. I've never been high. So I was all, I used to go to clubs, but I wasn't a party girl per se. You know, I wasn't
Yeah.
up until 5 a.m. doing cocaine at Save the Robots. The one thing that I always did was I did my job and I took care of my job. And it's what I would advise to anybody who's getting into management and into the music business. It is fun, Mocha. There are plenty of great things that you can do that are socially really compelling. But if you're working, get your job done.
Yes.
Get your job done, especially as a woman and as a woman of color, because we are scrutinized in a different way.
Absolutely.
So being a woman was, it absolutely came with its challenges, but I wasn't really objectified. And if I was, I didn't see it and I didn't really feel the impact of it. That's not to say that men didn't find me attractive. Of course they did, especially as being, oh, look, there's this Asian woman in the midst of all of us and she's different, right? Just by virtue of being different. But I think because I was so hyper competent and so serious about what I did, that came second. I tell the story about Tupac, about being in the meeting with Tupac and him saying, the only thing I'm going to remember about this meeting is that Sophia's got great legs. Other than that, what I, and of course he gets a pass on that, but really, Mocha, and I'm sure you feel the same way. When I leave a meeting, as much as I'd like for people to say, wow, she's so fly, or she's beautiful, or she's got a great sense of style, the number one thing that I want to come out of somebody's mouth is, wow, was she smart? Right. And so this is part of the persona, and this is part of what I present. So I was able to avoid a lot of pitfalls that candidly shouldn't have been pitfalls, right? I should have been able to do whatever I wanted as long as I got my job done, but such is not the case for us as women.
No, it's not. And we don't get there until, I say we don't get there until around, late 30s, 40s, that we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Something ain't right here.
Exactly.
Right. You kind of give yourself permission to, after children, that, okay, they've hung on to me. I've done what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Getting a little older now. Yes. And then you're left with, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
But we still got to get to Wu and how you met Wu-Tang Clan. How did you meet them?
So
how did they step into your life?
In early 1993, Prince Rakeem, at the time, is what the RZA called himself, was circulating a demo tape that had 3 songs on it: Protect Your Neck, Method Man, and Tears. All of us heard it. All of us thought this is incredible, but he famously or infamously asked for what's called a non-exclusive deal. What that means is that if I'm a label and I sign Destiny's Child, I have a right as the label to also put out Beyonce's solo album, right? Because no label is going to say, okay, I'm going to make a big star out of all 3, 4, 5, 7, 9 of you, but then you can all just go do whatever you want. RZA didn't do that. He said, if you want to sign Wu-Tang Clan, you have to give us a non-exclusive deal. And there was only one label that would do that. We could not at Jive, but we all followed their careers. And when it came time for him to shop his horrorcore group called the Gravediggers, that's when I got to meet him. It was in the summer of 1993, and I didn't end up signing them either. They went to G Street. It was a very rich deal, very competitive and very rich, because he was so hot and everything that he touched turned to platinum. But he never got rid of me. After that first day, I was like, oh, no. You don't understand. Like, I will shrink myself and insert myself into your pocket because I'm never going away.
Right. Did you feel that vibe as soon as you met him too? Like,
oh, absolutely. But anybody would. I mean, I think anybody, you can't meet the RZA and go, oh, whatever. You can't. I mean, if you do, then you're a fool, right? I would say to you, you are clueless if you don't understand what you're sitting in front of. And it has nothing to do with hip hop. You could know nothing about Wu-Tang Clan, nothing about hip hop, nothing about anything that he does. And if you just sat and had a 10-minute conversation with that man, you would know that you were in the presence of genius. And I really am very conservative about how I use that word. My brother is a genius. The RZA is a genius. And yes, I think he's a genius. Oh yeah,
he's a genius.
Oh, so
okay.
In terms of him responding to me, yes, I do think so. I think that I have um, I have a unique gift with people and especially artists, Mocha, that within minutes of meeting me, they trust me immediately. And as you can imagine, with rappers, because of their background and because of their history and because of politics, they don't trust very easily.
Right.
And I've had many artists say to me, I'm telling you things I've never told anybody before. Sophia, I talk to you in a way that I don't talk to anybody. You know, at one time, and he doesn't remember this, at one time, my memoir is going to be called Raised by Wu-Tang, because I always say that my name is Sophia Chang and I was raised by Wu-Tang. And
Okay.
RZA had said to me, you should call a Wu-Tang on your couch because you're like our shrink. You're like our therapist. All of us have, quote unquote, you know, sat on your couch at some point or other. Wu-Tang, you know, when you ask me, Mocha, about being a woman in the industry, part of being, you know, under the, what would you call it? Just being protected, right, by Wu-Tang is that people knew, everybody knew not to mess with Sophia Chang. Right. Because she's down with Wu-Tang. And I'm telling you, when Wu-Tang rolled, they rolled deep. First of all, they're 9, right? 10 with the DJ. Right. And then they all had their crew. So Staten Island was thick. Stapleton, Park Hill was thick in every venue that they walked into. And they were really imposing, not to me, because I was on the other side of that, right? Yes. I'm shielded by them. So they were very formative to my life, not only because they made me feel very special. Yes. You know, they made me feel they would always, you know, their whole crew would always call me a queen. They also, just as importantly, and more importantly probably, was that they helped me see myself. So growing up in Vancouver, what we were talking about being othered, I was very much a yellow girl in a white world who wanted to be white. And then I hear the message, and then I start listening to hip hop and hearing people of color talking about who they are and defining their own identities and their narratives, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't have this language at the time, but I do understand, and I believe now that that's part of why it resonated with me so deeply. Besides, the lyrics are incredible, the beats are amazing. Right. You know, Wu-Tang being so deferential to, and so much of their ethos being grounded and aesthetic being grounded in martial arts movies, they helped me watch martial arts movies. I was like, oh, okay. But it's sort of remarkable that I went through the Wu-Tang chamber to come back to myself. Yes. This is a profound gift. And I start watching Kung Fu movies. I start watching John Woo movies, and I go, I want to start doing Kung Fu. Right. And then you know what happens. I start doing
We go into the next phase of your life. So
the next phase of my
going. What happened?
So February 10th, 1995, my girlfriend Maria Ma and I finally, we start training in Shaolin Kung Fu with Shi Yanming, a 34th generation Shaolin monk. The day I met him, I went home and I called my parents. He didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any Mandarin. My girlfriend Maria, who's Taiwanese American, speaks Mandarin. She did all the talking. And I just sat there looking at him. And I called my parents that night and I said, I met the man I'm going to marry today. I knew it, Mocha. I knew it like I could say that this hat is black. I knew clear as day. Yep. And I started training with him. At the time, I was managing Old Dirty Bastard, God rest his soul. And I started shifting out of music and into the temple. I trained 15 hours a week at the Shaolin Temple. I completely immersed myself. I started running the temple. We fell in love. I mean, in less than 6 months, we were together and he was living with me. And we, you know, I watched us and the temple and Yanming change the lives of literally thousands of people. Yes. We had children together. Obviously, one of the first things that I did was that I introduced him to Wu-Tang Clan. You know, they call
really a family.
Exactly.
Really a family, yeah.
Yeah. What are the odds that I get taken under the wing of Wu-Tang Clan? Exactly. Start dating a Shaolin monk, right? Right. But this is Allahu Akbar, right? God is good. God is great. Yes. This is the beauty of the universe. When you humble yourself before God, whatever that means to you, whoever she is named, however you name her.
Yes.
I believe that we can accept the universe's bounty and beauty. And I humbled myself to the universe, and the universe brought me a Shaolin monk. They brought me Wu-Tang Clan. It brought me a Shaolin monk. And, you know, you can imagine Wu-Tang loved him immediately. He is not sanctimonious. He's not holier than thou. They loved him. And to this day, he and the RZA are very, very, very close friends. Very
Well, you
close.
took the experience of going to China
I did.
and that full circle moment on the
Exactly.
mountain.
Exactly. So, you know, Wu-Tang Clan calls their borough Staten Island. They call it Shaolin. The RZA and all of the guys grew up watching kung fu movies. I believe it was on Saturdays, on Saturday afternoons is when they saw it on television. They would sneak up to Times Square and go see double, triple features, skipping out of school. And in 1999, August of 1999, and I was pregnant. I was in my first trimester of pregnancy with my first child, with my son. I produced a tour of 50 students and disciples to go to China. And one of the stops was the Shaolin Temple. And another stop was Wu-Tang Mountain, Wu-Tang Temple, the Temple of the Purple Cloud at Wu-Tang Mountain. Now, RZA, it was the 1500th anniversary of Shaolin Temple. And RZA became the first artist ever to perform in front of the Shaolin Temple. I created that piece of history. Okay.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I did it. Do you, when you look back at that, do you believe that, again, well, you said you humble yourself into these things and life just kind of walks the path for you. When you think of the greatness of that and what richness, what rich experience you've given to people, like that's life changing.
It is. And, you know this, Mocha, when you're doing these things, you're not thinking of that in the moment, right? You're doing what you do. You're doing what you're excited about, what you're passionate about, but it's only with distance, right? That you can actually look back and go, holy cow, I created a piece of history.
You did.
You know, and then I took the RZA, the abbot of Wu-Tang Clan, I took him to the mile-high top of Wu-Tang Mountain, where he met the abbot of Wu-Tang, who gave him music, Taoist music. I mean, you know, truly my life, Mocha, if you took a room of 10 writers, if you had 10 writers in a Hollywood writers room and you said, write the most extraordinary, unique show about a Canadian woman, if they number one, they couldn't come up with me. You couldn't.
No.
Number two, even if they came up with only a fraction of my life, the network would say, that's garbage. That could never happen. There's no way that that happens, but it all happened. And I am grateful and I am blessed. And I thank God and I thank the universe and I thank Buddha for all of the bounty that I have received. I also know as a Buddhist, I do not believe in luck. I don't think I slid on a banana peel and holy cow, here I am at the end of the rainbow, Mocha, and here's our big pot of gold. I know that I myself forged much of my path. And it's the point that we were talking about earlier. Tell your story.
Right.
And for decades, I helped extremely talented men tell their stories. And now I'm telling mine.
Right. And what you could have stopped just at music. You didn't have to be so transparent. And you talk about the ending of your relationship. And listen.
Yeah, look, that was, it was, so what are the odds? Is it something like 55% of marriages end up in divorce, even though we were never formally married? Obviously, we were seriously partnered. I think if I look back at it, the notion that our lives were so fused. My partner, the father of my children, my best friend, my business partner, all of this in one person. And him, because he was raised at a temple in the forest in a mountain in China, I ran all of the business. And I think it's impossible for me, for us, for there not to have been some sort of, it creates a cycle of dependency and resentment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, it worked, and it worked well for a long time until it didn't. I
Yeah.
also know that we did exactly what we were supposed to do together. I have no regrets. Typically, I don't, it is my philosophy. I don't live with regrets in my life, except for the times that I was a crappy mother, and there are plenty of those.
Mhm.
But other than that, I
How did
could
you learn to
never.
give yourself grace with that? The crappy mother, even though we're all harder on ourselves than we should be. But how did you learn to give yourself grace
Well, what,
with
but
that?
Mocha, what's the alternative? To self-flagellate constantly and beat yourself, flog yourself into a dead horse? I can't do.
Yeah.
Look, trust me, when I'm a crappy mother, and I still can be a crappy mother plenty of times, I feel terrible. I feel guilty. But when I make mistakes, and I make lots,
Mhm.
I sit down and I go, okay, Sophia Chang, you stumbled here. This didn't turn out as you wanted. You were not a victim, you have agency, right? So what was your agency? What did you do in this scenario? Whether it was a deal falling apart, right? Whether it was a meeting not going as well as I'd expected, whether it was yelling at my kids when actually I was angry about something else. I examine, right? It's the interrogation of what got you there, how did you behave, and how can you avoid doing it next time? Because it's gone. That ship has sailed. There's no way to pull it back in the harbor, right?
Right.
It's gone. So rather than just wearing this shroud of guilt and shame, I go through it and I promise myself that I will try to do better next time. And sometimes I don't. But if I know that if I try, if I do my best, it's the most I can do.
Your courage is amazing in the story of then now having the courage to say, look, I've not only this relationship has come to its season and it's ended, but then you go into single parenthood, not quite making, because you were removed from,
Being broke as
what,
heck.
right, from what you did before in the music, and even though you were still creating legendary things with music icons when you were with the Shaolin. But you move into this other area, and it's like you've got to rediscover yourself while raising children, while trying to be courageous, while trying to keep smiling so that you don't scare them. Listen, this book is like, it's like I'm like, get out of my room, Sophia, what are you doing here? But it's people think that it's you embark on this new life, and then especially, oh, she's changed when you started to, wait a minute, I like to wear this, I like to wear that. Tell me how people received. Well, first let's go back to your courage. How were you so courageous during that time period of just being on your own with?
I have to ask you the same question, right? Which is not really, I'm not literally asking it of you. I just don't know the alternative, right? People read my book and they said, how did you just pick yourself up? How did you dust yourself off and try again, right? I simply, I can't abide the alternative, which is to surrender, right? Which is to completely go into myself and lie in bed and just weep all the time. Look, I don't suffer from any kind of mental illness. I am not depressive. So if I had that illness, I'm sure that's something that would have made sense. But I'm blessed that I don't have, I'm not hampered by that. And so I just always strive to do my best and to be better. And also, this is a mother of two. You don't have the luxury to not try anymore, because you're not doing it for yourself anymore. It's not like, Mocha, If I don't get this job, I'm not going to be able to get those shoes or that purse. Oh, no, no, no. This is Mocha. If we don't figure this out, our kids aren't going to be able to go to the school we want them to go to, or they're not going to be able to go to that summer camp or take soccer or take chess or whatever. Everything we do as mothers, all of it, somewhere, whether it's at the front of our heads, whether it's at the back of our heads, it is all in the interest of bettering the lives of our children. So with that motivation, I couldn't do anything but keep striving. And sometimes that was just surviving, and sometimes it was thriving. It just depended on where you caught me along my trajectory.
And then along with that, then looked pretty parallel to me was at the same time the courage to own yourself and to not care what people thought about what you had on, too little, too much. It was a certain freedom that just went pow,
For sure.
all at the same time.
For sure. I think that, I had this series on Instagram that I called Suck a Bleep. And the pilot episode of that, in a minute, I talked about forget your purity test. I can't pass your purity test. I'm not Wu-Tang enough. I'm not Shaolin enough. I'm not Korean enough. I'm not feminine enough. I'm not feminist enough. I'm not sexy enough. I'm not chaste enough. I'm not, the only purity test to which the standard to which I hold myself is my internal compass and that of my friends, right? If I start to maybe go awry or my ship starts to sail a little bit off course, I can't, Mocha, think about it. As women of color and being careening through middle age as I am, if I started to take into consideration how I was viewed by the dominant culture, how could I get out the door? You're old, you're Asian, you don't have long, beautiful hair, you don't have the figure, you talk in a way that we don't expect. You're not the model minority Asian as we want, right? You're supposed to be quiet, you're supposed to be demure, you're supposed to be the submissive geisha. All of the stuff that's mapped onto us, right? By white supremacy, by patriarchy. Look, all of us have internalized all sorts of stuff, clearly. But I am constantly trying to reprogram myself out of these things that we have internalized. Right. And the more I do it, the more liberating it is. And, a lot of people say that about me. They say, God, you're so fearless and so inspiring that way. And I simply don't know how to live my life any other way. People say, oh, dance like no one's watching. I dance like everybody's watching. I don't care. Right. I don't care. I can't tell you how many events I go to with somebody like Danielle Belton, my friend, right? We will literally be the first people on the dance floor. I don't care. You think I care? I'm having fun. And I also believe that this kind of the confidence and the joie de vivre, right? Mm-hmm. From what I can gather is infectious. And I want to spread knowledge and power and joy and beauty in all of its forms and encourage the world, but particularly women of color, to be the baddest in the room, right?
Baddest bitch in the room. They'll mute it if they need to.
To be the baddest bitch in the room and to own that and embrace all of it. I could sit here, Mocha, and tell you, oh, these are all the things that I would change about myself. Look, my skin, I could get a little nip and a tuck and I could grow my hair and I could do a little bit of this and whatever it is. I would really wish that this didn't look like, why am I sitting here and creating an inventory of the things that I don't like about myself? The things that I don't like about myself physically, okay, I'm going to try to change. Maybe, work on this a little bit, work on that a little bit. The things, more importantly, that I don't like about myself internally, I have a therapist, right? I'm constantly, I say that I am self-reflective, self-examining, self-interrogating, self-loving, self-replenishing, self-caring, self-renewing. It's this daily process that I try to go through. I don't always succeed, to be better, to be a better person for me, for my children, and for the world.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know we've run out of time. I wanted to, so maybe when you come to DC, we'll have a whole thing on the courage to love again, because those are some chapters that
The courage
I
to love
think we
again, and
need
the
to,
courage to, I am a body positive, I am a sex positive feminist. And as you know, as an Asian woman, as a middle-aged Asian woman who otherwise is invisible, this is something that I really would like women to be able to do, is to own their sexuality. If they're having sex, it doesn't matter. It's not about you have to have sex, but if you're having sex, not to be, be subjected to this purity test.
yeah, that's the conversation for that intimate conversation in
Yes,
here.
let's
Yeah,
have
because
that
I
in
don't
person.
think we do that enough.
We don't.
We
We
don't.
don't.
You're not
We're
wearing enough clothes.
Yeah, we're so puritanical about it. Aren't you too old to be what?
right, right.
Okay, I adore
Who
you.
gonna
I
check me,
must
boo,
go.
right?
What's that?
Okay. I said, like, what's your name, Sheree? Who gonna check me, boo? I mean, I'm almost 50 years old. What do you mean I can't,
Really,
So
I earned this.
exactly.
I lived my life to be able to do whatever the heck I want. I adore you. I look forward to meeting you. Please let me know
I love
about your
you.
plans to come here. Please do. Anything you need.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this
Thank
book.
you.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye
Bye-bye.
now. Bye. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to author Sophia Chang for reminding us that there's an ebb and flow to life, that there's a reason and a purpose for everything. All we have to do is remain open and fluid and know that everything happens for a reason. When you go down, get back up. Keep fighting. And you see that otherness, that different thing about you? Don't hide it. Don't try to be mainstream. Celebrate it. Don't dance like no one's watching you. Dance like everyone is watching you. Why? Because there's power in your otherness. Join us next time for the Lit Lounge by Mocha.